Welcome to the Worldwide Luxury Home Podcast. I am James Dewar, your host and realtor for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services here in beautiful San Antonio, Texas. With me is Josh Ledesma, the forever agent with Berkshire Hathaway. Welcome, Josh.
Good morning, James.
And I won't shout out you. You were right here last time we visited down with Greg Gunter, is our guest. You were zoomed in, so I guess I won't yell at you here, but. I'm sure our listeners have already listened to the previous one, but this is Greg Gunter, and he is the Dream Pro Realtor. And I'll let Josh introduce him about his history and with the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services.
Some of my favorite things that I learned about you, Greg, last time around is you guys are the first Berkshire Hathaway Home Service franchise in Mexico, and to be more specific, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico.
There you go.
How was that?
You haven't pronounced it right, Josh.
I've been working on that. I've been working on it. Greg is the broker owner of the first flagship office down in Mexico, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. He is the Dream Pro Realtor, and he is all things San Miguel de Allende. He is the local expert. Greg, it's our pleasure to have you back on again to learn a little bit more about what it's like for U.S. residents to own property in your neck of the woods. So we want to welcome you back, and thanks for your time again.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on with you again this morning.
Well, I just want to let our listeners know that they can go to www.buyhomeglobal.com and they can get introduced to Greg Gunter, the award-winning 14-year realtor down in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. Just go to buyhomeglobal.com, send us a note, and we'll get you introduced to Greg and other realtors across the U.S. and across the world. Greg, the first thing I want to kind of like set the mood. I mean, you're in the office now. I know you're in a UNESCO area, and are you at your office now, or is this your home?
I actually work from a home office most of the time. You're right. We have an office in the UNESCO World Heritage Site within town. So, not the entire town is a UNESCO site, but the core of the Centro, which is 480 years old. That area has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Zone, and that's where my office is. So, a lot of things are small and very vertical there. So my actual real office where my agents do floor duty and people walk by and see us, we're literally right next to, it'd be like being 40 feet away from the Eiffel Tower. We are right next to the famous parochia church that's right on the town square. So we get a lot of good traffic walking by. But it's a tiny footprint. So I work from my home office. Yeah.
And last time we had an interview, people can go back and listen to the interview about the lifestyles of San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and about the luxury homes there. But we talked a little bit about owning property in Mexico. So this is what this podcast is all about. We want to learn from the expert, the Dream Pro Realtor in Mexico, what it's like buying in central Mexico. So Greg, can you tell us a little bit about can you buy, how do you buy, etc.?
Sure. It's funny, I'm in central Mexico for you viewers that are maybe not familiar with San Miguel de Allende. I'm in the very center of the country. So we're the heart of Mexico. A lot of people, when they're contacting me the first time and they really haven't done any research, they go, so how close are you to the beach? And I'm like, that's like asking somebody from Kansas City, how close are they to the beach? It's the same kind of thing. We're in the very center of the country. So we're in a central desert highlands. I'm at 6,400 feet in altitude. So nice, high, dry climate, sunny, wonderful weather, no humidity. We almost never break 90, rare that we get too much above 85. And when we do, it's nice and, comfortable because it's only 10 or 15% humidity. So wonderful weather in this part of the country. But another interesting feature from a home owning and investing perspective is, the statistics, the American statistics say that there's over 1.25 million people that own homes in Mexico. Probably the overwhelming majority of those 1 million+ people are buying condos along the coast. So they're not really buying a condo. When you invest in a property along the coast or along the border, like in Tijuana, or in Cabo San Lucas or Puerto Vallarta or Cancun or Merida or places like that, you're not really investing in a property. You are investing. You're not owning it though. You get it through a bank trust called a fideicomiso. And that's a lot like owning it because it's a 99-year renewable lease that can be or bank trust is really the technical term for it. And that can be passed down to your kids and your future generations. It can be sold, it can be transferred, but you don't technically own it. In the center part of Mexico, away from those what Mexico calls the protected zones, you can physically own it just like in the United States. So you get a fee simple deed here in my city of San Miguel de Allende, just like you would have in San Antonio and in LA and Denver, anywhere like that. It's the exact same kind of process. Ironically, let me just touch a little bit on it without going too long here. The way that you go through that process here in San Miguel de Allende is very much like in the United States also. So that process, I've worked with clients that have bought properties. I just closed one last week, actually, with clients that are moving here from Puerto Vallarta. They've been living in Puerto Vallarta for 6 years, and they went through the closing here, and they went, "Oh my gosh, it's so much easier to go through a closing in San Miguel de Allende than it is in Puerto Vallarta. It's a much more straightforward process, a lot less paperwork. It's just a lot more straightforward. But we use a lot of the same tools and techniques that you use in the United States. So escrow is always used down here. The closing process is always a very straightforward process, mostly because many people are buying all cash down here. Typically you're not getting a mortgage down here because Mexican mortgages are much more expensive. So people tend to be buying all cash, or they're using cash coming from a HELOC on a property in the United States, or perhaps they take a margin loan against an investment account. All of those resources for funds are often cheaper, well, always cheaper than getting a mortgage in Mexico. But nonetheless, we still have mortgages available down here. So, if you're going through a mortgage process, it's going to be very much like in the United States, a little more paperwork, a little bit longer time frame, but typically we close in about 30 days. And the whole process is very much like in the United States. You're working with a buyer and a seller's rep, and it's a very similar process. Commissions are similar. The way we operate is very similar. So my expat clients that are coming down from the United States feel much more comfortable with that because it's a process they're familiar with, because most everybody owns a home in the U.S.
Yeah. But one of the most important things, you have over 14 years of experience doing this. And I read that how many homes do you typically sell in a year? Or
I typically sell about 30 homes a year. I was the number 2. I worked with another franchise, master franchise. Here's another really interesting point for you viewers that are learning about the different companies in Mexico. I'm not a master franchise. All of the other flags, all of the other franchise operations all throughout Mexico are master franchises, which means they're just renting a name. They have no connection to their American counterpart. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services doesn't operate that way. We are an American franchise, so I have all the same tools and connections and utilities, and just like I was based in Dallas or Irvine or LA or anywhere else. It's a phenomenal asset for both my buyers and sellers. It's a very helpful tool for them to know they're working with an American company that works just like all of our sister agencies up in the United States. Okay. But yeah, I was with another master franchise for 8 years prior to this, and I was the number 2 realtor in the entire country of Mexico. So I sell a few homes. I've got a little bit of history.
So Greg, tell us about how one comes to the decision to own property down in San Miguel. How do I sort of get the ball rolling? What's sort of my first move, I guess?
One of the interesting things about me working as a realtor in a second home market, we kind of are considered a second home or a retirement home market. Even the retirees that buy down here often don't live here full time. I'm one of the few people, probably maybe 20 to 25% of us that live here are here full time like me. I cannot stay in the United States for more than 30 days. So I live down here full time. Many, or 75% of my folks will be here part time. So they'll be here anywhere from 3 to 9 or 10 months of the year. a lot of people do a little research and they go, oh, I'm thinking about buying a retirement home. And, I hear San Miguel's a lot more affordable than, Miami or, Scottsdale or, Palm Springs or places like that. And they'll come down and they'll do a little research. They'll learn the market. Because I'm working with clients sometimes for a long time and they do their research online before they come down, unlike in the United States where they just drive down the street or they hop on Zillow or Redfin or Trulia and do a little homework. You can't really do that down here because we don't really have a real MLS system. So I have to do a lot of outreach to clients in advance so they can do a lot of homework and a lot of advanced research on me and my market before we get here. So we provide a lot of video tools, a lot of neighborhood reviews. I provide a 15-page Q&A booklet that kind of introduces my clients to the marketplace and how it works here. So it's a lot more of an educational process.
Yeah, so I have a question on this, and we're looking at that like 15 pages of Q&A. It's really well written and it's easy to it answers all your questions about buying in Mexico in San Miguel. Is it okay? Is this something you send out to anybody? If our listeners want a copy of this, is this something you're happy for us to share with everybody, or is this just for your clients?
Nope, of course. I connect with about 1,700 clients a year, and every one of those, my very first connection with them, they get a copy of that. Even if I never hear from them again, that's the first thing they get from me is a little educational booklet. It helps build a basis for a communication process, so that they know a little bit more. Hopefully they'll generate maybe a couple more questions and make them want to connect with me. And yeah, viewers, anybody that might want to see it, my email is greg@gregorygunter.com, and it'll be at the end of the video here, I believe. And you're welcome to connect with me. And it's a free booklet. I send it to everybody. It's on my website as well. You can click and get it, and there's no commitment at all. It's just a free booklet to kind of educate you about the process. But remember, it's going to be specific to San Miguel de Allende. It's going to be a little different if you're looking on the coast.
Well, I have it here, and this is something I definitely will share with my clients that are looking at moving to San Miguel.
Perfect.
Josh has like an investment.
Yeah. So what about, so you mentioned a lot of your clientele or a lot of the area is they live there part-time. So what about if I'm a consumer, what's going on while I'm not living there?
A lot of people will tell me number one, let me back up and tell you a little bit more about my background. I'm an architect, but I also hold an MBA in real estate and finance. So a lot of my clients, a lot of my investor clients appreciate the fact that I've got that financial background and I can actually do an ROI analysis for them if they're looking for specifically for some sort of a return on investment. Now, it's interesting that a lot of my clients will say, we just want to be able to pay for the property, the carrying cost on the property. Well, down here, your carrying cost for a $500,000 property might run $3,000 for the whole year. I'm talking property taxes, utilities, a maid and a gardener, all of that might run $3,000 to $4,000 for the entire year. Well, you can rent your property down here for a month out of the entire year and make, cover that entire year's worth of carrying cost within a month's worth of rental. So a lot of my clients, of course, they're gone for more than a month, so they can continue to rent it for the rest of that time. And, I'll put in a conservative occupancy of about 2/3, about a 67% occupancy rate, even though our citywide occupancy will run about 80%. I'll be a little more conservative on ROI. And in many cases, clients can still get a double-digit ROI, which is far more than covering their carrying costs. That's a pretty good ROI. It's doing better than your mutual fund in many cases. And remember, team, that's just an ROI. That's not an IRR. That's not an internal rate of return that takes into account the appreciation. So we're a market that gets good appreciation. We can run 15 to 18% a year in appreciation. So, this can be a good market for taking a look at a property that, may not be your forever home. Maybe you just come down and spend a month a year here, but it can provide a really good rate of return and an internal rate of return, if you hold it for a few years.
Yeah, well, tell our listeners about the range of pricing for luxury homes there in San Miguel, and also what's the current market? Is it up, down? Is it a good time to buy?
It's interesting. Our median price in San Miguel de Allende runs about the same as the Bible Belt or the middle of the country in the United States. So our median price right now in the US, that's about 406. We're actually a little less than that. We're going to be a little closer to about 365 for our median price, but our average is going to skew higher because we do have a higher luxury market here. So if you don't have $1 million to buy a home, don't worry about it, because we've got pricing that starts at, you can get into something here for 400 in a good location. It's still going to be walkable, and it goes up from there. We measure our luxury market in Mexico at the $500,000 level and above, and you can certainly find good options closer to that $500,000 level. The interesting point for a lot of your viewers, especially coming from the coast, you'll find that a 7-figure home here is going to be about 1/3 to 1/5 the cost of a 7-figure home, or the value is going to be, 3 to 5 times better, looking at a home on the coast, for instance. So what might sell for $1 million here would easily be 3 to 4 to potentially 5 million, in Santa Barbara and even San Antonio and parts of that, Highlands Ranch in Dallas, those kind of neighborhoods. Even relative to those, we're going to be 1/3 of that. So the value, even at the luxury level down here, is really astounding. It's rare, for those of you that look at statistics, it's rare for us to sell a home above $300 a square foot, for instance. And I mean, they're selling for $1,500 a square foot in LA markets and, coastal California markets, and, $3,000 a square foot in New York, for instance. So it's a very affordable market for a product that is all handcrafted. Nothing comes from a box down here. Nothing comes from a factory other than the faucets, maybe coming from a, Home Depot or a nice faucet company. The doors and windows are handcrafted, all the materials, the wrought iron, the Cantera stone is all hand carved. So even though the value, if you were comparing just square footage prices, still looks awesome, the quality of what you're getting is exponentially better as well, because it's all handcrafted.
Well, so walk our listeners through, if they're going to go down or they're thinking about visiting San Miguel, do they call you, or can they just pop in your office? What is the procedure for actually them popping in and seeing a couple of homes and setting that up with you?
Again, I always encourage my clients to reach out to me well in advance of your visit to San Miguel. What I'll do is, as soon as you communicate with me, I'm going to send you that Q&A booklet that you've got in your hand. And so they'll get a little bit of an education process there, and then we'll set up a conversation so I can learn a little bit more about their home search parameters and their time frame. And if they're coming down, in the next few weeks, I'll actually put together a list of targeted options. This is an important thing, team. We have a very rudimentary MLS down here, so it's not like being able to search for homes in the United States where it's very easy. You just go online and, even Zillow and Trulia, you can find stuff online. That doesn't work down here. We don't have any of those kind of tools down here. So it's good to work with someone that knows the market really well. And like me, I can put together a targeted list of options that fit all your requirements. If you tell me the top of your budget is 700, you're not going to see anything above 700 for me. And I'll send you that list. You can preview those all online, and you say, okay, Greg, when we get there in 10 days, let's go take a look at option number 1, 3, 7, 12, and 37 or something like that, So we'll have done all of our homework in advance. I'll have educated them about the different neighborhoods. They'll know a lot more about the city. So, they know about half of what they need to know before they even show up. And then, I take them around town. I educate them about the different neighborhoods. I've got a lot of that online already. So that's the wonderful thing. When they go on my website, they can review about 13 of our most popular neighborhoods and look at neighborhood reviews and videos and things like that about those neighborhoods. But then I also drive them around, get them familiar with the city, and physically show them homes. And we talked about this a little pre-camera before we got on board. Clients often come down and they go, well, I know I'm not ready to buy yet. I'm just kind of learning about San Miguel, but I'd love to learn about the values. What can I get for my dollar down there? Is it okay to look at a couple of homes? I'm like, sure. How else are you going to learn about the market? Even if you're not ready to buy yet, come on down. We'll take a look at a couple of homes that are kind of in your budget range, and you'll be shocked at the value that you get for that budget. So, we often work with clients well in advance of when they're actually ready to pull the trigger and actually invest in a home.
And we're not just talking about any town. We're talking about San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, which has unbelievable culture, arts, and opera, symphony, everything. And as you said before in the previous one, is they're performed You're probably still performed, the opera's probably still performed in Italian or
Yeah.
German or French or whatever, but y'all, I guess they have subtitles and all that, but everything is English, right?
We have the largest English language, social and cultural infrastructure in anywhere in Mexico.
Wow.
You know, well, I joke with my clients, a lot of the coastal places, your entertainment options are who's got the best happy hour, you know, who's got the 2-for-1 or is it 3-for-1? And here is like, well, would you prefer to hear classic rock, or do you want to hear a classical quartet, or do you want to hear a Steinway pianist, or do you want to hear a Frank Sinatra crooner, or do you want to hear the symphony? I mean, those are your options, you know, it's not just like who's got the best happy hour, 2 or 3-for-1. And you don't have to just take my word for it. The nice thing about San Miguel de Allende, and I mentioned this, I think, on our first video that we did, we've been named the #1 small city in the world 5 times by Condé Nast Traveler and 4 times by Travel and Leisure magazines. So it's not just my opinion. I love it here. They're going to carry me out in boxes. I tell people I absolutely love the culture and the climate here. But you know, when a magazine is named you #1 city in the world 5 times, I joke even Paris doesn't have that. So there's a lot of people that agree with me. It's a great community.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Like what like to carry that badge, you know? So,
Yeah, exactly.
so Greg, okay, so we've kind of gone through some of those steps. Let's say I've reached out to you well in advance, and we've come down and we pre-planned, and you took us around to see some properties, and it's the end of our trip, and we find a property we like. What does that mean for us? We have to stick around. How long is it going to take to close? Let's kind of fast forward to the end of that. I know. What can you speak to that matter?
Yeah, I know a lot of my clients, they'll be like they're next to their last day, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're leaving, and we love this home. We want to put an offer on it, but you know, we won't be back for 6 months because of our travel schedule. You know, what can we do? I can do everything long distance except for the actual closing. So, and then, you know, if they say we can't be back for an actual closing, which typically occurs in about 30 days for us, and they say we can't be back in 30 days, then we do what's called a power of attorney. And I name the attorney a couple of the attorneys that are part of my legal team that I work with, so that attorney can attend the actual closing for you. But prior to that, all the other documentation that we do can also be signed by DocuSign. So we can do all of that long distance. So literally, if you find a place your last day, or you know, you're leaving town in 2 hours to hop on the plane, but you see something, you love it, and you know you've been looking for a couple of days with me, and you say, this is it, I know this is the one, we can still take care of that long distance. You can still hop on the plane, and I can get you going okay, and we can do all of that paperwork long distance, especially using that power of attorney. I'll take you down to my legal team, you know, and they'll do that in about 30 minutes and have that taken care of. And so all of it can be done long distance. Many of probably 40% of my clients are not even here for the closing. So they do it long distance. They say, I can't get down for another 30 days or 90 days, you know, because of work, or, you know, I'm traveling. I always introduce them to a property manager, and that property manager then maintains the property until they get back down here to finally get settled in. You know, so you don't have to worry about the grass dying or the trees dying. You know, you'll have someone that's going to be taking care of the gardening, someone that's going to be cleaning the house. So it's a very hands-off kind of thing. It's very easy to maintain a property even when you're not here.
Well, one thing I found interesting in your booklet here is about right of survivorship. I mean, everybody always has questions of what happens. Is it much different in Mexico? How can I protect my investment? Talk to us a little bit about a right of survivorship.
That's very much like in the States, where you can write in a right of survivorship for your spouse. So it's an automatic process. You don't have to go through any kind of probate or anything like that. However, we also recommend that everyone do a Mexican will. Whatever will you have in the United States is not valid in Mexico. So even if you've named children, for instance, or any kind of relatives in an American will, that's not valid in Mexico. So what I always suggest to my clients, they do a right of survivorship for your spouse within the deed itself. That's an automatic process, something we can automatically build in. And then if you want to get into how heirs would inherit it beyond that, 20% goes to this kid, 80% goes to that kid, or you're breaking it up in a different way to different relatives, then you can do that through a Mexican will, and that can be changed at any time. So that's an easy process. It's a very and a very affordable process. It's a very cheap thing to do. So again, that right of survivorship is just like in the US. It's a very easy tool that makes sure it stays in the family, even if one of the spouses passes away.
Greg, it's really obvious to me that we could kind of go through the nitty gritty of all these details for hours. Is there anything major that we're leaving out, or any big rocks that you feel the audience needs to know about the process of acquiring property in San Miguel that we're leaving out?
Just the biggest thing to give them that comfort factor that it is, at least in my city, just like in the United States. It's a very similar process. All of my buyers have found, that comfort level in knowing it's just like in the United States. One of the rare exceptions, for instance, is that we have a higher down payment down here typically. So when you're funding your earnest money escrow, I mean, in the United States, you can put down $1,000 on $1 million property, and that's your earnest money. Down here, it's a little higher. But most of my clients I've educated them about that before they come down. So that's the key to stress with clients, I think, Josh, is that it's just like the United States. We have escrow, and the rest of the steps, the process that we go through is just like the United States. And then the other key factor to really stress is the value, the amazing value that you will find down here relative to the other parts of the United States that you're coming from. Even if you're coming from the Bible Belt and you're looking at a $400,000 home, the $400,000 home you're going to be getting down here versus what you're getting up there in Kansas City or Des Moines or wherever it might be, is going to be a fully handcrafted home that's very unique. It's not a cookie cutter kind of something that's coming from a production builder, because we just don't have those in this town. So the process and the value are the two things that I really like to push with buyers when they're first kind of looking in this part of the world. And we're so close to home. That's another good thing. 2 hours and you're back. Yeah, 2 hours and you're back up. It's not like buying in Italy or Portugal.
Yeah. So where do you fly in? Do you fly in San Miguel?
We actually don't have a local airport here. That's another thing that we kind of joke kind of qualifies our visitors. We get the more educated visitors that aren't just looking for a beach experience, because we have 2 airports that are each 75 minutes away on either side of the city, but they're both equidistant, about a 75-minute drive. So you do have a little bit of a drive, but when you fly into Cancun, it takes you an hour and a half to get to your airport from Cancun too. So it's a similar process. But we're a little under 2-hour flight into Dallas or Houston, and then we have direct flights into many cities. You can fly direct into LA, Chicago, O'Hare, places like that. You can get direct flights from either of those 2 smaller airports that we have. And then we're about a 4-hour drive away from Mexico City. So, for my international clients that are coming from Paris or London or, places like that, they can fly directly into Mexico City and then just take a shuttle service up from there.
Okay. Well, we have a few minutes left. Josh, did you have any other questions?
No, but Greg, just wanted to say thanks for coming on and doing this and letting the audience know about it. And we certainly can sense the local factor that kind of courses through your veins there, and we certainly appreciate it. And we encourage our audience to work with Greg, and he's obviously very prepared and willing to talk with you even early on in the process. So just thanks again, and we're really appreciative to have you on board.
Happy to help. And viewers, you see my YouTube channel. I've got literally hundreds of videos on there that range from lifestyle issues, just fun stuff, lifestyle issues, restaurants, and I walk you through my home so you can see the architectural details to look for when you're looking for one. I review neighborhoods, I review listings. So the YouTube channel, a lot of us are visual and really love to see the visual aspects of the city, and that's a good thing to take a look at, is my YouTube channel.
Okay, well, maybe we'll do another one on your YouTube channel. We'll go back and forth, because this is going to be, we just finished your YouTube from your last presentation. So we'll be sending that for you to share on your YouTube and all that too. So Greg Gunter, the award-winning Berkshire Hathaway agent, owns the flagship, the broker owner in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. We really appreciate you making our clients, our listeners feel comfortable when buying in Mexico. And we look forward to our next video we do together. And Josh, thank you for being here. And I do want to do a shout out to the Marathon, Texas volunteer fire department. Please support them. And
Awesome.
yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome group, and they're a volunteer group. So we want to support the Marathon Volunteer Fire Department. Greg Gunter with Berkshire Hathaway, thank you so much for being here. Josh, my co-host, thank you. And this is the Worldwide Luxury Home Podcast.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Come on down.
Definitely.